Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, depending on where you're joining us from in the world today. Thanks so much for attending the 2022 Strong Partnerships, Stronger Clubs October webcast with the World Federation of Youth Clubs. And we have some fabulous speakers here with us today from the Boys and Girls Club of America and Boys and Girls Club of Southern Maine to help us learn best practices about all things partnerships. Who to partner with, why to partner, when to partner, what to consider with a partnership, and what you might need to think through, and so much more. So today we are going to learn so much from Jane and Erin. I'm your host, Abby LeMay, the Vice President of Global Impact Initiatives here at World Federation of Youth Clubs. And before we officially get started today, I want to take just a couple of moments to review our agenda and a few housekeeping items. So the format, if you've been with us before, you already know. In a couple of moments, we're going to turn it over to our guest speakers, and we're going to learn so much about partnerships. We do ask that you remain on mute throughout the session, but we encourage you to keep your video on so that it feels like we're all together in a room learning. There will be some question and answer time at the end, but you do not have to wait until the end to ask questions. In fact, I know that our presenters today would love it if you introduced yourself in the chat, asked some questions, and shared your comments along the way. So we are recording this session as always, and a link will be emailed to you after today, likely by tomorrow, so that you can rewatch this session, you can share it with anyone and everyone who wants to learn more about partnerships. If you are a club leader, we encourage you to please share this session with your staff and with your key volunteers, because everyone can stand to learn something about partnerships. As we've mentioned before, and I will mention again, please remain on mute until questions and answer, but of course, feel free to use the chat. And you may have noticed that live transcription is enabled and available today. Of course, with the recorded link, once it's available on YouTube, you can also translate this session into other languages. And last but not least, for the best view of the session today, we suggest clicking View, then Speaker View, or side-by-side Speaker View, so that you're looking at the speakers and our presentation. Before I officially turn it over to Jane and Erin, please take a moment to type into the chat, how does your organization currently work with community partners? Now, it doesn't have to be a formal partnership on paper, but it can be. How do you work with members of the community, government organizations, other nonprofit or charity partners? Tell us how you currently partner. While folks are typing, one way that WFYC partners with other organizations is right here today with this webcast. Our webcast program would not be possible without really incredible partnerships from leaders in youth development and nonprofit management around the United States and around the entire world. So this is just one way that we partner, but can't wait to see how you all do too. Ron says that he works to find common alignment in terms of mission and values and seeks to understand if there are mutual ways to provide support and engagement. Makes so much sense. Gregory says he offers experiential learning from industry members and community programs through Boys and Girls Club, YMCA, Junior League, all great examples of youth-focused organizations working together to improve outcomes for youth. Please continue to share these examples in the chat. We can keep chatting about them over text. And while we do that, I'm going to officially hand it over to Jane Rodgers and Erin Giwer. And ladies, if you could please introduce yourselves.
Thank you so much, Abby. And I have to just a big special thanks to the whole leadership group at the World Federation of Youth Clubs for highlighting our work today and inviting us to be a part of this conversation. I'm Jane Rodgers. I'm the National Vice President for Partnerships and Growth at Boys and Girls Clubs of America. I live in Brooklyn, New York, and I am excited to be a part of this today. And I'll turn it over to Erin to introduce herself.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for having me. I'm very excited to talk about community partners. It is something I love to do, something I do every day, and I see a lot of value in that. And I'm happy to have that conversation and hear from you guys. So Erin Giwer, Senior Program Director, and I work at the Boys and Girls Clubs of Southern Maine, and I'm located in Portland, Maine.
That's awesome. Thanks so much, Erin. And Erin and I are going to kind of bounce off each other during the next hour, because I think we're going to talk about partnerships from two different perspectives. And I think that's an important thing to point out. At Boys and Girls Clubs of America, we have a strategy around our partnerships that might look a little bit different than what you would see at a local Boys and Girls Club in the United States, and may look a little different from what your organizations are doing all around the world. So if you want to forward to the next slide, many of you have already put in the chat, actually the next slide after that, Abby, thank you. Many of you have put in the slide kind of, who you are and where you're tuning in from today. But one question I would love for you all to answer in the chat, if you would, is what do you hope to get out of today? And we really want to meet your needs. And while we've created a presentation and we'll share information, I think it's really nice to know, what your lens on partnerships is. And we make sure that we hit all of those questions before we end today at noon. So if you want to throw those in there, we'll circle back towards the end and make sure that we've covered everything. So let's move into the main content today. Boys and Girls Clubs of America has had partnerships in place probably since inception, over 160 years ago. But as most of you would understand, we evolve how we think about partnerships, as I'm sure you do as well. And our current thinking is really around how do we use partnerships, build partnerships, and create really powerful partnerships that help us create stronger ecosystems of support for youth. And when I think about a local Boys and Girls Club and a community, I think about the saying, it takes a village. And very much the Boys and Girls Club is the hub of that village, because we are facility-based. That makes us a really great spot to be able to provide expansive services for young people, and for us to lean in really hard in the areas that we know and do best around out-of-school time services, and to partner with others to make sure that if young people are having a need for a hot meal, if they have health issues, if there is insecurity in housing, if they're dealing with significant trauma and might need mental health services, how do we create partnerships at the national organization that can land locally? Because for us, whenever we're thinking about a partnership, we're thinking about what will that partnership do at a local Boys and Girls Club? Additionally, at Boys and Girls Clubs of America, we have a youth development program, a safety program that also partner with other organizations that can scale across the country. And so we're actively looking at gaps in our program curriculum and other areas that we can, find a partner to help us move more quickly, because I think you'll all agree the world is changing faster than we can write curriculum for at one organization or fill every significant need. But we know that there are other groups out there in the world that are doing extraordinary work and that can benefit by reaching out across our scalable system to be able to provide those services locally. We can jump to the next slide. So we think about kind of a cycle of how we work with our partners when we identify one that is going to help us support system. So as I talked a little earlier, first we start with identification of the opportunity. What's the need that we have? And then we actually, just like we would with a funding partner, we do a partner qualification. We have a rubric that we run every single partner through to think about, are they a good fit for our brand and for our Boys and Girls Clubs? One of the things we're always considering is reputational risk. The other organization, once they partner with us, our brands are tied together. And so we really want to make sure that the other organization considers safety at the top of the pyramid, and the work that they're doing when it lands is successful. And there haven't been any issues for that brand in the recent past. And Google is a wonderful thing, and we use it very often. But we're really constantly making sure that whomever we partner with, we're aligned around our work, our mission, and our values. Then we spend some time really thinking about the win-win. And I love partnerships, much like what Erin said. Partnerships are my jam. I love them. I love building them, and I love seeing them come to fruition. And so it's not a good partnership if just I win. I want us both to win. I want both of our organizations to walk away from having signed a partnership agreement that makes sense for each of us. It makes us stronger. It helps us both raise more money so that we can serve more young people and land our impact locally. And so we spend a good bit of time in that formation stage, really thinking about what are we doing and why are we doing it, and how will it manifest at a local club or within the national organization. We always memorialize our partnerships with an agreement. And that starts with an MOU, with an addendum that really kind of describes the work. And it gets down into the ticky-tacky things, as we like to say, because we want to really talk about where we're trying to go and how we're going to get there. And then we think about, how do we land the plane, whether it be across the movement or at a local Boys and Girls Club. We want to think about what's the implementation and the management of this, because the devil is in the details, as we all know. We want to think about those details before we go broad with it. And then we transition that over to the partnership manager within Boys and Girls Clubs of America, so that we can go wide and go deep. And I think both of those things are really important. We think about that life cycle, much like somebody in resource development would. And the one piece that isn't listed there that I think is really important is stewardship. Any great relationship requires staying in close contact and making sure that both parties are getting out of the partnership what they need and what will help drive impact. So that's the one piece that's not on here that I would definitely want to highlight.
Jane,
Erin, am I missing anything? Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to ask, when you talk about opportunity identification, I feel like that's such an important piece. And so from a national perspective, I know how we do it in a smaller scale in clubs, but how do you get the feedback from the clubs and really make sure that what you think the need is and what the opportunity is actually what people on the ground are feeling as well?
That's such a great question. The way we do it is we work really closely with our subject matter experts who are in direct contact all the time with clubs, and our directors of organizational development that are the conduit to clubs, to ask them, what are the echoes that you're hearing? What do we know is really bubbling up from clubs? And where are our gaps that we don't currently have something in the arsenal to support those gaps? So it's really about having a great communication across Boys and Girls Clubs of America, as well as when we're on the ground, whether it be at a club visit or at our regional leadership conferences, all of our events where we see clubs, we're talking about, what are you hearing? And then for us, it's really about the echoes, right? Because every now and then you get an outlier. They're talking about this thing, but no one else is talking about it. And so you'll start to reflect on it to make sure that maybe this person, they might be just seeing something unique in their community, and we can help them specifically. But we really, at BGCA, we want to think about those echoes because we know that it's broadly impacting young people across the country.
Yeah, that's very important. My other question was about the rubric that you all use on a national level, and how that came to be, and does that evolve over the years, or how has that changed, and maybe a little bit more about that.
Yeah, actually, it was a learning from resource development. They started using a rubric against all of their funders because many funders let's just talk about a big brand. Like, let's just think about somebody like Kimberly-Clark, right? Big giant brand. They might have a bunch of different verticals, and they may have come to us around this one thing that sounds like a logical fit, but maybe there's some other things happening across their brands that may not be a logical fit. We want to make sure before we go too far down the rabbit hole, we're really thinking about the brand that we're going to partner with. So we took their form and started to tweak it based on the nuanced difference between a funding partner and a programmatic partner. I think, the reality is it really stems from being a global universe with information moving very quickly through the internet in a way that 20 years ago may not have been the case. You'd think about, well, of course, we're not going to take money from this company because what they do is, directly against what we do. But now it's a much more nuanced part of our work to make sure that we're really thoughtful about who we're sharing brand with.
Right.
Awesome. So Abby, if you want to jump to the next slide, we'll talk about 3 major partnerships that we launched this year and just a little bit about the why. And actually, I see Gregory Zick, who's with us today from the National Association of Home Builders, a partner that I love working with and just had a call with yesterday. So we'll start with that one. Many of our partnerships, all 3 of these partnerships started locally and ended up bubbling to the top, much like what we discussed a little bit ago, Erin. This one started because of an incredible partnership that was happening in Madison, Wisconsin, between the local Home Builders Association and the local Boys and Girls Club. They were creating a workforce center that was going to really change the way we think about how to help young people think about what they want to do post high school. And so we saw what they were doing. We were introduced to the leadership at the Home Builders, and we started to think about what was the potential to scale this partnership so that all of our clubs across the country could get introduction to their local home builders and build a relationship at the local level that would work for them. That we don't need to create a cookie cutter approach. All we need to do is introduce incredible leadership at local Boys and Girls Clubs and from the home builders. And they can start working together to think about how do we increase the pipeline of young people interested in working in the skilled trades and entrepreneurship. Just kind of a no-brainer. But for us, the keys to this were that it was scalable, that it existed across the country, just like us, so that the time we put behind driving it out would make sense for more than just a few clubs. It would make sense for many. The Special Olympics partnership that we launched recently was really targeted around increasing inclusive practice at local Boys and Girls Clubs. We know that most clubs do things that are inclusive, but many clubs don't have the bandwidth and the capabilities to do as much as they want to do. So Special Olympics was an expert in this space, and they also scale across the country and really wanted to find a way to make out of school time space more available to young people that were, otherwise able. And so this partnership has started to grow exponentially with interest from clubs across the country. And we see ourselves almost as a Match.com. We're just constantly bringing together local leadership so that they can figure it out. People don't need a toolkit. They know what they're doing. And as we start to see things that we can help them with, we'll build tools to support. But the most important thing is just connecting people at that local level. Jack and Jill of America is one that I'm really, really excited about. This is an organization that's almost 100 years old and that is all about diversity, equity, and inclusion, and increasing the opportunity for African-American young people across the country to grow into leadership positions. The women that we work with, it's primarily women of families across the country that are a part of Jack and Jill that want to teach their children and all children about giving back, leadership, entrepreneurship, and all of the things that make young people successful. They have chapters across the country, and we are actively building relationships. The number one thing we're hoping to help drive through this partnership is really creating more diverse boards of directors at our local Boys and Girls Clubs across the country. It's an incredible group of women, powerful African-American leaders that want to get involved and support our Boys and Girls Clubs across the country. 3 national partnerships that land locally and hopefully will help solve challenges that are happening at the local level through a match.com way of work. So, Erin, any questions on any of those or how we're thinking about national?
Yeah, so what you talked about scalability and trying to decide which partners you're going to kind of elevate so that it has a farther reach. And from a national organization that works with a lot of youth, I'm sure you get a lot of people knocking on your door wanting to be one of those partners. So could you just talk a little bit more about that process of saying, yes, this partner is something that is scalable, that is holding value and needs to be pushed out to everyone?
That is such a great question and really something we grapple with every day because we have a lot of organizations coming to us with that question. So we're actually going into the process of I want to call it a vetting form, but that sounds so formalized, really a questionnaire to say, we'd love to learn more about your organization. We have a variety of different drop-down questions that will be on our website. And so we can actually understand what their readiness for a partnership is. And for us, it's really all about readiness. There's lots of great small nonprofits doing awesome things. But the reality is we're just not large enough to be able to land a bunch of little local planes. So we really want to understand their readiness to be able to support and scale. For groups that have curriculum that they're interested in sharing with Boys and Girls Clubs, we look at that a little differently. And if something is of interest, we have our staff vet the curriculum, and we're working to build what we're calling a virtual partnership marketplace, where we'll put vetted partners on bgca.net for our clubs to be able to access. They'll know that the curriculum has already been reviewed. It's already been vetted and approved by our youth development, safety, or other leadership staff. And it will be almost like the good housekeeping seal of approval so that we can allow clubs to self-select those things that they know have been considered. So we're really thinking about partnerships in a variety of different ways. And there's no one cookie cutter approach. And the most important thing for us is really recognizing and supporting and appreciating all those in the space, whether they can be a national partner or not. We're just thrilled that there are groups that want to work with us, and we want to make sure that we make it an easy process to do so.
Yeah, I love to hear about the questionnaire, because one thing that kind of, I think, makes people less interested in seeking out community partners is the time aspect. And a lot of the phases that you talked about, what each of those phases kind of signifies is time,
Right.
is meeting with someone to have those conversations and to have a questionnaire that said, hey, we're very interested in hearing what you have to say. We want to consume that before we sit in front of you. That could probably save national and local clubs a lot of time, because that is when I have a new partner inquiry, what I'm spending time doing is those back and forth conversations and around that entire cycle. So that's a good way to save some time on both levels.
So true. And that's why we're working on that, and we'll have that done by the end of the year, because we recognize it's not just myself and Meg Pittman who works closely with me on this process, but it's all of our subject matter experts, because inquiries are coming in now through LinkedIn every day. and access to our staff. And our goal is to make sure that our subject matter experts are spending as much time as they can helping local clubs serve young people with greater impact and integrity. So for me, it's really all about making the process as streamlined and simple as possible to save as much time, both for the organization that's interested in working for us, as well as for our team.
Yeah, love to hear that. That's a great goal of ours too. So it's nice when you hear it on a national level also, when that's what we experience here at our clubs.
Absolutely. So I think at this point, I'm going to ask Erin to give us some great information on how this looks locally, because Erin and the folks at Southern Maine are doing it incredibly well at an incredible high level. So Erin, go ahead and I'll jump in with questions along the way.
Yeah, thank you. So right now we have a portfolio of about 100 community partners, and that doesn't mean that they're in our club, once a week. Some of those partners are event-based, maybe an event once a year, maybe an event a couple times a year, but we consider them a current partner if we are going to be working with them within the year. And so we do experience some of the stuff that Jane is talking about, where when you are an organization that works with youth, there are a lot of people that want to work with you. And so how do you create a best practice around figuring out when things are a good fit, when they're not, and actually getting them step by step into your clubs and giving the experience that you want to provide to your members, and then the community partner also having a good experience. So in our slides that are coming up, we're just going to look at that process and step by step kind of go over that. And some of this you guys may be already doing, and you're like, yep, we got that one. But hopefully some of this can help add to your process already. Or if you're just starting out, these tips can help you as you try to tackle how you and your team are going to make the time to get community partners into your clubs, because there is a lot of value in what they can bring. But I also understand that sometimes resources can be a little tight, both finance and staff wise. So what you have in front of you is what my steps are and how we operate at our club level when we are interested in bringing a community partner in. So just quickly, we'll dive a little bit deeper into these as we move on. But first, similar to what Jane said, is identifying the need, figuring out what it is we're looking for and why. Structuring the ask. Sometimes, a lot of times people come to us with an ask. Sometimes, though, we have something very specific we want to provide, and so we need to seek out a community partner. And before you do that, you want to make sure that you have all of the information in line with you and your team, so that when you present that to a potential partner, it's very clear to them what you're looking for. We also have found that establishing staff roles, both from an administration standpoint and also from an in the club staff standpoint, is very important for our community partners. It saves them time and confusion and ends up making a lot smoother transition as they come in and out of your clubs doing experiences, when they know who they're supposed to ask for different things. Of course, the vetting process, which a lot of that circles around safety and much of what Jane said, we want to make sure we're partnering with the right people for the right reasons. And then coming up with contracts, or making sure that we're looking at a contract prior to signing it to ensure that we're all on the same page. And then sometimes, if things don't work out right, or if it just isn't a right fit, how do you address when it's time to part ways and say, maybe this isn't the best fit? Those are unfortunate situations, but they do happen, and not everyone is a good fit for what you're looking for. And that's just how it is. So figuring out how to have those conversations in a respectful way that sets the tone for both you and the community partner. So when you're identifying your need, we talk about mapping out current program offerings. This is something that we do regularly. Each year, we're mapping out what we offer in our organization, and then we are trying to figure out, do we need to make any of those programs a priority this year? Do we need to work a little harder at some of those priorities? And with that always comes this list, and we call it a wish list. And it's, where are the gaps? What are the things that came up this year that we weren't able to do in-house? And how can we seek out programming that can fill those gaps? Because, you know, as I'm sure your staff are, our staff are versed at many different program areas, and we appreciate all of that, but we can't be experts at everything. We can't all be musicians, and we can't all be photographers or nutritionists. And so we really want to make sure that for some of those more specific things that we can't provide in-house, we're seeking out the experts from the community. And then always, you know, youth input is so important. We want to make sure that when we have an idea, that also resonates with the youth that we are serving. So that looks like different in different times. So we may have members come in and have a dinner and have an open conversation around what do you like, what's going great, and what would you like to see? Or we may pull kind of a panel together and get some ideas from them, or say, here's what we're thinking. What are your thoughts? We also do surveys. As we're going through these, if any of your clubs are really doing awesome things with how you get youth input, please put that in the chat. I think that's always great for everyone to hear. We're always looking for more opportunities to get feedback from our youth, especially about our programs and the things that are really directly affecting them.
Erin, quick question.
Yeah.
Do you have an example of any partnerships that you've created based on youth input that you've gotten recently? Just always curious to see if something popped up that you hadn't thought about without their help.
You know, we have a lot of musicians and music interest, and we had a group that specifically came to us and said, we want to be a rock band, but we don't know any music instruments, and we don't know how to do that. And so we had a couple staff, you know, one plays guitar and one plays a little bit of piano, but we were like, I don't know if we can provide rock band instruction. And they also wanted to be on a stage. They were like, we love performing for the club, but like, we want to be out in the community on a stage under the lights. That was their vision. And so we actually were able to find a partner that we had previously worked with pre-COVID, but had kind of gone dormant during COVID, to say, hey, this is an interest. What do you think? This seems like it might be up your alley. And they loved it. They were like, absolutely. We want to make that rock band happen. And we also have 3 very large community performances. If we can get them ready, we will put them on our stage and make the lights and the stage and the audience happen for them, so they can really realize what their whole vision was. And so that came directly from our youth.
I love that. That's super cool. And it's really like thoughtful the way you went through that process. Thanks for sharing that, Erin.
Yeah. All right, so let's move on to, actually, yes, I forgot about this one. So this is an example wish list from my organization. So the way that we structure our programs is in program pillars. And the reason we decided to do that is because we really wanted to provide focus for our staff and just how we talk about programs out in the community. So our program pillars are, as you see on the screen, the arts, leadership, academics, and health and wellness. And so this is an example of some of the wish list items that we identified and we're trying to check off this year. We may not get to all of them this year, but we definitely are looking at this list regularly, especially when someone comes to us with an idea and saying, oh, is that one of the things that we can check off? So sometimes this is an example of how you could, you know, set program categories and then really dive deep into each one of them on what you might be looking for. So when you're structuring your ask, you want to make sure that you're also sharing that ask or sharing that intention with your network. So that could be staff, volunteers, other community partners that might be well engaged in the community, and just letting them know, hey, this is what we're looking for. And if you know anyone or you've heard of a program that we should be looking into, you know, please let us know so that we can go ahead and make connection with them. So your network and word of mouth can be really helpful, and it can cut down some of the legwork or the time that you have to do seeking out, all these different wish list items. But once you've identified a potential match, we were talking about making sure that you get all of your information in line before you reach out. And so you really need to work with your team and identify those specific details. So, background info about your organization. Why are you asking for this? And sometimes maybe that's youth input, which is always, our community partners always love to hear. Commitment details. So what is that really going to look like for them? What is the amount of time or the amount of resource they're going to have to provide? When do you want this to start? And then your goals for that program, what they can expect when they walk in your club, funding topics, and then additional resources. And so why don't we dig in a little bit deeper to each one of those so that we can understand what that looks like.
One thing before you jump, Erin, when you threw up that, structuring your ask and searching your community organizations, for any of the programs that are on here, we're currently loading all of our program partnerships into Salesforce, and we're identifying the different things that our program partners do, because we may be connecting with a program partner around one particular initiative, but there might be a bunch of other things that they do. So we tag them, and then we can go back into the system, love technology when it works for you, and put in kind of what we're looking for to see if we have a program partner in our arsenal already that we may be able to expand around. So just another way to really think about our, database and really deepening our partnership with existing groups. So I'll let you jump back in.
Yeah, no, that is great. And that does remind me, we have used community partners for several different things. And that's another reason why when you're organizing this staff-wise, it's good to know who your people are. Like one example is we work with a local college, and I have them coming in to do programming about dance and theater. But then my volunteer coordinator also uses them as a partner to get students in to help volunteer and support our programs. And then our college readiness program also uses them for college prep. So that's 3 different people in our organization use them for 3 different things. So making sure that you define who's doing what can be really helpful, because those wires can get crossed very quickly and create internal confusion and confusion on the community partners side. So when you're thinking about background information to share, you want to let them know the youth age range. That can be an overview of who you serve completely in your club. And then you could also narrow it down to who this actual program is going to be for. The location at Southern Maine, we have 9 locations. So I always make sure to specify if I'm looking for, 1 or 2 or all clubs, or if I'm open to whatever they can provide. And then just a brief history about who you are and what your mission is, just in case maybe they aren't as familiar with the organization. You can go ahead and upfront tell them who you are and why you do what you do. And then when you're telling them what you're looking for, explain to them why this is core to your mission. Why is this important to you? Because that also can encourage someone that you guys are excited about this and you would be a good partner for them to send resources to. And then, did this idea directly come from youth input? Always good to note that. For commitment, is this going to be a one-time class, a one-time event? Is it going to be multi-weeks? Is it going to be a 6-week class? What are you hoping for? And again, if you have flexibility on that, let them know. Or if you want their recommendation on what would be the best way to structure that, that's fine too. But if you're very specific on what commitment looks like and what you need to have, make sure you specify that for them. And then timing. Are you really ready to start as soon as they're ready? Or is this something you have a goal of starting in the next 6 months? Sometimes it's good to look at, what are you already doing? Do you really have room in your schedule right now if they're ready to go? Do you have the staff that you need to support them or other things going on in the clubs while this program happens? And is there a day of the week or a time that you're like, yep, that is a gap in our schedule. It's kind of that free time that we really want to put a good option in for our members and identify that if that's the case. And then for your goals, what do you want your kids to get out of this? It's always about what we are providing to our youth. What does it mean to them? What are they leaving with? So really identifying that and making that clear so that your community partner can really structure what they're bringing into your clubs so that it hits upon that goal. The number of youth that you hope to participate, likely you're going to be tracking this in some kind of way. So you want to let them know if the goal is 25 kids, if the goal is 10, or if it's more than that, letting them know what that looks like, because as well, there's resources that differ between those different asks. And then does this program need to have a specific end time? Do you close for the summer, or do you need to have this done before the school year starts? Things like that, so that they know what the timeline is. And then what can they expect when they come into your space? So let them know about the schedule or how the club operates so that they understand where they're going to fit in. How many youth, again, would they be working with, and what does that space look like? Are they going to have a location that's kind of private and away from all the other kids, or is this going to be out in the open and kids are going to be coming and going? And then are you able to provide staff support, or are you really looking for an individual that feels comfortable coming in and being independent once you train them and get them on their way? So those are two important things. And that staff support piece is really key to creating a good relationship, because if they really are looking for your support and then you provide no support, then that for the program can have its pitfalls and really make it not as great of an experience for your youth. But it could also leave your community partner feeling like we didn't hold up our end of the deal because we didn't provide what they were hoping to see. So letting them know that up front and getting that negotiation out of the way early on, just so you know if this is actually a feasible idea. And then funding, if you have grants that you can use to help fund this, if you want to know how much something like this would cost and what you're looking at as far as budgeting, those are also great ideas to say in the initial ask. We do co-grants with some of our community partners that we have worked with for a long time. And so as you develop strong relationships, sometimes you can do funding opportunities that work for both of you. And then supplies, just, general resources. If there's anything that they're going to need that you're like, we already have that here, we'll provide that to you, let them know. But if you potentially think that supplies could be a costly item, you want to ask what that looks like. So
a couple things I love about this slide, Erin. It really highlights the need for clear expectations so that everybody understands the rules of engagement for the partnership. That is the number one thing. It's such a great list. And I know this is being taped, so people can just, snapshot this to remind them of all the things that need to clear up front. The other piece that you brought up that I love is really being able to fundraise together around something. And that's really a goal for us in many of these partnerships, because what we do know is that many foundations specifically, as well as individuals, really love to fund collaboration because they want their donor dollar to go further. And so to be able to share how you're doing things together versus segmenting the donor, I think is a really key strategy. And it does take a while to get to that point, because anytime you talk about dollars and sharing dollars, people get, they have feelings, which we respect. So really building trust and then moving to that next stage, I think, are great points. Thanks for elevating those.
Yeah, definitely. So with establishing staff roles, designating one point of contact, as we kind of touched on, but that person will do a lot of the list that we just looked at. So that planning, scheduling, more of an administration role, but also can be just their main point of contact back and forth. It just helps to save them on multiple conversations, especially if you have multiple locations. There's usually a leader at each location, and if they have to continually have all these side conversations, it can get really confusing. And then prior to a community partner entering into your space, let your staff know who's coming, why they're coming, what they're going to provide, and then also let them know what you're hoping that they can do to help support this. Maybe it is nothing, but maybe it is something very specific, like having a space ready at a certain time and having those supplies you promise them out on the table ready to go so they don't have to search for them. Creating a roster of participants. They're not going to know the kids, especially right away. So you are promoting and then identifying kids that would be a good fit and getting that list together. So when they walk in, you already know who you're targeting member wise, instead of having to scramble and say, did you want to do this? Did you want to do this? They're here right now. Do you want to go? So really doing the prep work. And then behavior management. So a lot of community partners, they want to come in, they want to do the fun stuff, and sometimes behaviors creep up and we have things that need to be addressed. So making sure that your staff know, hey, if there is an issue, like please be a resource for them and, go have a side conversation with that youth before sending them back in and decide if this is a good fit. That way it doesn't interrupt their program and it doesn't cause them to have a relationship or cross a relationship that really they shouldn't be. And then when possible, if you if you are the point of contact, the main point of contact, to be there at the very first program. So be able to greet them when they arrive, introduce them to your staff. I always say, if you plan well, you start well. And so really planning, making sure you have all of your boxes checked and you're there for them in the beginning can really set the tone for that community partner and for your members, because they can feel when things are well planned and when there's a structure. I always too, when I bring kids into a new program, I introduce the teacher and I set the expectations. Here's why we're here. These are some of the things that these are some of the agreements that we've created in our clubs, and those same agreements and respect pieces apply within this room and to this guest. And then I also make sure our staff member from the community partner knows where the bathroom is, or where the supply closet is, or where they need to check in. Do they need to wear a visitor badge? All of those things when they enter the building. So once they come by themselves, they already know the process. Vetting process, which Jane talked about, and it sounds like our national organization has some really great things that they use with the rubric and questionnaires that I love. So part of what we do here on a local level is figuring out the safety procedures that work for your organization. We do background checks, even though some of our teachers that come in from community partners have already been background checked, we still background check them because ours might be a little bit more extensive. If background checks aren't something where you are, your local police or government might be able to help you understand what options there are to just make sure that the individuals that you're bringing into your club are safe people to work with. References. So if you can, doing that internet search might pop up all the partners they've had in the community and what they did. And so you'll get a very good feel of what that looks like. Sometimes maybe social media isn't their thing, or their website hasn't been updated for a little bit, but there's still a good option. So saying, hey, do you have someone I could speak to that you recently partnered with so I can learn about what that looked like, is totally fine to ask. And most partners are certainly happy to say, oh, sure, we just did this project. Why don't I get you in touch with the staff member there? And then also visitor rules. So just making sure that they understand what's expected of them as a guest within your club. So researching, we just talked about the past projects. Creating shared goals is also important. We want to make sure that it all works for every party involved. And we want to find lines of similarity between what we're hoping to get out of this. So making sure that what we want to get out of it and what the community partner want to get out of it are in line and are compatible with what the plan is. We often do tracking and measuring to figure out if a partnership was successful. That looks different with different partners, but success can look a little bit different for different partners. So we want to make sure that when we're tracking things, we're saying, hey, what is it that you need us to track? Or what were you hoping us to track? And how would you like this measured? Oftentimes it's very similar to what our idea already was, but sometimes they want an extra survey thrown in, or they want a specific question on a survey that gets more to their mission. So those are easy things that can create a really trusted and strong relationship with a community partner that you can do just to help them feel like you're actually listening to them and are interested and invested in what they're hoping to get out of it too. And then establishing check-in points. Oftentimes, most community partners will just reach out if they have a question, but especially a brand new partner might be more hesitant if they have a question or if they feel like something isn't really going as expected. So establishing when you want to meet with them, maybe it's after 2 sessions, maybe it's halfway through, and making sure that everything's going well for them is always good and opens up that line of communication so that they know you're open for feedback, you're ready to help and support them when needed. And then that funding piece. Sometimes we just write letters of support. So an organization says, we would love to work with you. We're going to actually apply for money specifically to work with your organization. We just need you to write a letter saying that you also have intention to work with us and you fully support this project. Such an easy thing that we can do that helps support them get money, which then comes back to our kids and gives them awesome opportunities. We also figure out cost share opportunities where we're kind of sharing funding in that way. So they're paying for a percentage and we're paying for a percentage, and those can kind of be negotiated in a lot of situations to meet our budget and theirs. Anything I'm missing, Jane, on the vetting that I think on a local level they should think about?
I think this is a great list. I mean, I think you're really kind of hitting the high points. And once again, it's clear expectations and then really thinking about who you're working with. So I think you did
awesome.
Great.
So community partner contracts can protect you from unexpected things throughout working with a community partner. If you're writing the contract, just make sure that you're specific, your language is clear and concise, and has the important details. If you have to sign a contract, make sure that, if you're confused about something, you reach out, let them know that, and ask for things to be changed if something doesn't sound right to you. You can potentially always ask someone in your organization, hey, does this look right? Does this sound right? Before you actually sign your signature on the line.
Yeah, we at BGCA actually have all of our MOU agreements with partners vetted through our legal department, just to make sure that we've been really thoughtful. So having legal counsel review even your partnership agreements, I think, is a best practice if possible.
Yes, definitely. So sometimes it's not a good fit, and that's just the reality of situations. Sometimes it's just not a good fit right now. So a no right now doesn't always have to mean a no forever. It's always good to make sure that timing is right for your organization before saying yes to a community partner. But sometimes things just aren't a good match. That may look like people that are kind of wary about passing background checks or following your safety protocols or questioning you on those really important things that you hold value in your club on. That's a big red flag. Maybe not following through. So if they can't follow through on the plan, they're probably not a good fit. If there's a lot of cancellations or showing up late, I don't know about your clubs, but we operate on a very, timely schedule. And so if that's something that's important to you and they can't follow that might be something you want to consider. Again, being able to follow the rules you have in place, requesting additional funds that you guys didn't talk about in the beginning. So if you get halfway through and they have a big ask that they should have told you from the beginning, that could be something that you consider when you're trying to think if you want to work with them anymore. If they didn't deliver the quality that they said they were going to deliver. And then if your members didn't like it. So sometimes we try things and it doesn't go as great as we thought, and that's okay. Sometimes we can change it up a little bit and alter the plan, and then that works better for our members. And sometimes the members are like, I don't know that was really fun for me. And so you have to hear that. And sometimes you're like, really? I thought that was going to go great. But you want to hear where they're coming from. And if it wasn't fun for them, then it's probably something that needs to be changed or just isn't a good fit. Yes. And then lastly, so my parting thoughts are just that I know community partners can be time consuming, but the opportunities that come out of it are extremely valuable. And when I say opportunities, I mean programs that they bring, but also some of the additional connections and opportunities that it provides your members outside of that programming once you create that strong partnership. So.
Erin, I just love the way you're creating this incredibly strong youth ecosystem there in Southern Maine. And I especially loved how you had your wish list by program area, because I think it allows you a systematic way to really consider young people's needs, your gaps, and how to fill those and not have to spend a ton of money when there are other groups that really want access to kids and they may not have a program like ours. So thank you so much.
Definitely. Thanks.
Erin and Jane, thank you both so much for sharing all of this fabulous information. We will certainly make sure that the PowerPoint for this presentation is included in the follow-up email so that you can refer back. We are right at 11:59 Eastern time today. So I'm going to turn it over to Tony, who's going to share just a couple of updates and reminders, and then we'll officially close. So if anybody needs to leave, you're welcome to, but Jane and Erin will stay on for a few minutes. We'll tackle any questions or topics that you want to talk about. So Tony, take it away.
All right. Hello, folks. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, depending on where you are in the world. First of all, I'd like to give a thank you to Jane and Erin for that wonderful presentation. That information was super, super valuable, and I can't wait to hear about how you all plan on utilizing it all. My name's Tony Galveo. I'm the Program Operations Coordinator here at WFYC. I know I've met a couple of you before in past webcasts or in emails or other types of communications. I'll be taking over as host of this webcast series in the next couple of months, and I'm excited to make 2023 webcast series amazing. Coming up in the next couple of days and weeks, I'm going to be sending out a follow-up email survey about this session. That information is super valuable to me and the rest of the team. We really want some insight on, what type of content the affiliates find valuable. I'm also going to be sending out this recording along with the YouTube link so that you can have access to this content at any time to share with your team. Next webcast is going to be November 17th. It's going to be on family and club relationships, and that's going to be hosted by WFYC's own Jose Cruz. And we are all super, super excited to see the type of content that he is going to be presenting to you all. And in the next couple of weeks, we're gearing up for our December affiliate showcase. We're gearing up for our December affiliate showcase. And at the end of every single year, our very last webcase is an opportunity for you all to showcase all of the accomplishments that you have had over the last year. And so we're taking submissions for content from today until November 13th. So if you have any questions about that, please email admin@wfyc.org or give me an email directly at tgalveo@wfyc.org. And my contact information is going to be on the WFYC website. So with all that being said, thank you so much for joining. Until next time.
Thank you, Tony, and thank you to everyone who joined us today. As mentioned, we are going to stay here on the Zoom room for a few minutes to answer any questions. So please feel free to type your question in the chat or come on off mute. I've been muting people all day. I would love to have your voice interacting in direct communication with our presenters today. We see a few people mentioning in the chat that they have to sign off, but thank you so much for joining us. We're glad you could make it.
This was so much fun. Thank you so much for having us.
Yes,
Thank you for joining us. Thought it was a great session, lots of wonderful information.
Thanks again, Erin and Jane. It was great, as expected.
I
Appreciate you guys.
appreciate you.
Thank you, Glenn.
I love seeing where everybody is when they would put their, location, and it's just incredible the broad reach of this organization and the shared commitment to helping young people achieve success.
Yeah, what a great organization to be able to take perspectives from all over the world and share that. I mean, there's got to be a lot of value and a lot of great ideas that happen when you all get together.
It's all about those partnerships.
It really is.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Hey, Tony, I'm assuming we'll have the slides and those things available for everyone on the website. Because I mean, Jane and Erin, I'm speaking for most of the affiliates we work with, are really looking for the takeaways right now. And you guys
Yeah.
did that. This was awesome.
Oh, good.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great.
All right, last call for questions, comments, topics you want to talk about while we have Jane and Erin on the line. Well, I guess that means you ladies just had such a thorough and complete presentation. There's no room for questions. I really enjoyed your presentation and just want to say thank you again. We will go ahead and stop recording now, and you all are welcome to